Let's move on to the NECC. We'll touch on it briefly. A couple of big games this week. Obviously, the conference titles have all been decided. It's a three-way in the small school division. Talking Eastside, Busco, Central Noble. In the big division, Angola kind of dominated from week one. Garrett gave them a bit of a game last week, but they clinched the big division title last week. Eastside played well last week with a 21-7 win against Central Noble. They're going to be taking on Angola. How do you see that playing out? What are some of the keys there? And then Garrett versus Central Noble in the Greg Mo Bowl. I know Coach Depew would certainly like to beat his old teacher, so those are two games to look at this week. How do you see?
I like the Greg Mo Bowl.
The Greg Mo Bowl. He'll be excited about it. He's excited about everything. But they've played. I don't think there's been a team in Northeast Indiana that has had the turnaround from last year or 2 years ago to where they're at this year, quite like Central Noble and Greg Mo has had.
Right. And I like when you mentioned those two games, and even though they're not really conference championship type games because that's decided. Angola Eastside has done a great job defensively. 6 games of opponents under 8 points, 8 or fewer points. That's getting some defense done right there.
Salty.
You know, and then they had 3 takeaways last week, which I think they've been very good at that. Angola's so dominant. I mean, they've really shown that they're the cream of the crop when it comes to the NECC. So I love that game. And then Garrett Central Noble. When you've got Chris Depew and Mo, and I mean,
there's going to be a lot of testosterone, a lot of fire on the sideline, and that is what we love to see on Friday night.
I think those are two tremendous coaches, guys who get the most out of their team week after week.
Finally, when you take a look at week 9, what have we learned? You know, it's the final week of the regular season. Like, if there's one theme that we've seen here in 2017 or one idea that you take away as we head into the postseason or wrap up the regular season, like what's the one theme, what's the one solidary thing that you can take away from this regular season?
From the whole regular season, man, that's a tough question.
I know. I should have posed that to you beforehand, but I like to put you on the spot.
One thing we can take away, I think that there's a general parity, I should say, not parody.
Parity,
two different things. Parity with the teams in the Fort Wayne area, because I think Snyder has proven to be the best team, but I don't think once you get past Snyder, there's a lot of mix in there. SAC in particular, if you look at the things that have happened, and Homestead has risen to that number 2 spot solidly. But then you go to the NE8 and you've got 3 teams tied for first. You go to the ACAC and you've got Woodland and Adams Central primarily, but some other decent, strong teams with South Adams and so forth. So, I mean, I don't know that this year has been a year where we've had several superstar teams. We've had a strong Snyder team and good teams across the board. So I guess I take away from that this has been a year where you can't necessarily predict from week to week.
Yeah, I think that's been the fun part is we may not have, those juggernaut teams, but man, you never know what's going to happen every Friday. Teams like Central Noble will come out of nowhere.
Right.
Bluffton's been a tough out. DeKalb's played better. All the traditional powers seem to be playing pretty well, but Northrop at times, their offense can put up points. Southside's had some moments. It's been an interesting season just to see who has all risen to the top because there's a lot more muddled, from week in and week out to see who lines out in which conference. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been a good season. I think overall that every week there's been at least a game that you can say, wow, that was a really tremendous game.
All right, and hopefully we'll have some more of those in week 9. But that'll do it for this week's edition of Inside the Zone. He's Reggie. I'm Glenn. We'll talk to you next Monday.